For centuries, a silent question has echoed across continents and classrooms. Why are they hiding the truth about Africa, its history, and who benefits from erasing the legacy of a continent that gave birth to some of the world's greatest civilizations? When we talk about history, most people instantly think of Europe, Rome, Greece, or empires that shaped the West. But very few realize that long before those powers rose, Africa had already built kingdoms so advanced that many modern historians still struggle to understand how such brilliance has been minimized for so long. This is not an accident. This is a deliberate rewriting of truth. Imagine walking through ancient Timbuktu, where libraries once held over 700,000 manuscripts on astronomy, mathematics, law, and philosophy. Many Western scholars who visited during the Middle Ages wrote with shock that Africans were reading books older than Europe's universities. Yet, in our school curriculum today, Timbuktu is rarely mentioned beyond a few sentences. The same silence covers the mighty Ashanti Empire, whose golden warriors built one of the wealthiest kingdoms on earth. Their craftwork was so advanced that Europeans called it impossible for Africans, refusing to accept that black people created goldwork that rivaled the crown jewels of Europe. And what about Great Zimbabwe? A stone city built with such engineering precision without mortar and standing to this day that early European explorers could not believe Africans made it. Instead of accepting the truth, they invented myths claiming Arab travelers or lost Jewish tribes built it. This deliberate denial wasn't about ignorance. It was about control. If Africa's achievements were acknowledged, then colonialism could not be justified. If African civilizations were respected, then slavery could not be excused. So the strategy became simple: hide Africa's greatness, distort its story, and make future generations believe the continent contributed nothing to the world. They seldom teach that the University of Sankara in Mali was older, larger, and more advanced than Oxford. They never mention that African doctors performed cataract surgery before Europe even understood sterilization. The Moors of North Africa introduced streetlights, hospitals, mathematics, irrigation systems, and architecture to Spain and Portugal, shaping European progress for centuries. But in most textbooks, this influence is erased, replaced with stories that portray Europe as the origin of all scientific and cultural advancement. Why? Because acknowledging Africa's brilliance threatens the narrative that justified exploitation. The truth is that Africa's history is not only powerful, it is world-shaping. From the Kingdom of Kush, which conquered Egypt and ruled as its 25th dynasty, to the Empire of Benin, whose bronze sculptures are considered masterpieces even by modern art experts. The evidence of Africa's greatness is everywhere except in the places where our children learn. Benin's bronze plaques were so advanced that Europeans first claimed they had to be made by ancient Greeks. They couldn't believe Africans mastered metallurgy to such perfection. These bronzes now sit in European museums, stolen, displayed, and miscredited. And when Africans ask for them back, they're told the world might lose history. Whose history? The real tragedy is that generations of African children and African American children grew up believing their ancestors were only slaves, farmers, or tribes without structure. That lie crushes ambition, weakens identity, and creates a psychological gap that makes people feel disconnected from greatness. But the truth is different. Africa's civilizations weren't behind, they were leading. Ethiopia defeated European powers long before colonization reached its peak. The Battle of Adwa in 1896 was a global shock when Ethiopian warriors crushed Italian forces so completely that newspapers worldwide declared, Africa was not a continent to underestimate. And yet, this victory rarely appears in history books. The story becomes even deeper when we explore the Noac civilization of Nigeria, which produced terracotta sculptures thousands of years before ancient Greece sculpted its first marble statues. These were not primitive societies, they were innovators. The Dogon people of Mali understood star systems like Sirius B long before modern telescopes. When French scientists visited in the 1900s, they were baffled. How did an isolated African tribe know that a star invisible to the naked eye even existed? But instead of crediting African intelligence, many scholars dismissed it as coincidence. And when Africans built their own architecture, like the Nubian pyramids in Sudan, 3 times more pyramids than Egypt, Western historians minimized them because acknowledging them disrupts the narrative of African weakness. Sudan alone has over 200 pyramids. That fact alone could rewrite history, but most people never hear it. And let's not forget the Swahili coast where Africans traded with China, India, Persia, and Arabia long before Europe entered the picture. These were not people waiting to be discovered. They were builders of complex, global trade routes. So the question is not, did Africa have great civilizations? The question is, why were we never allowed to know? Because knowledge is power. And when you take someone's history, you take their identity. When you erase their achievements, you weaken their future. When you control their past, you control their confidence. But today, the truth is returning. People are researching, questioning, and rediscovering the greatness that was hidden. We are living in a time when African stories, long silenced, are rising again. And as you hear these truths now, ask yourself, who benefits when Africa is portrayed as weak? Who gains when black excellence is suppressed? And who loses when the truth comes out? Because once the real story of Africa spreads about kingdoms of gold, universities of genius, warriors who defeated empires, architects who built wonders, scientists who understood the stars, the world will finally see what was buried for centuries. And the greatest part? This is just the beginning. Now is the moment to reclaim history, restore pride, and shine a light on Africa's legacy that was kept in the shadows. If you want the world to know the truth, they tried to hide Don T. Just watch this story. Share it, spread it, and let the truth rise again.